Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest 8-second gaming, and in today's video we are going to be doing 20 rapid fire tips to help you guys improve. Having small little things like this are so important to be able to pull out of your bag of tricks at any given time, so we're going to be talking about breaking it down. One of the most horrifying modern day problems is identity theft, and that is why we are pleased to present today's video sponsor, Aura. Like guys, just quickly, imagine this. You're in college, and at the same time you're working a restaurant job just to make ends meet. At the end of the day, you check your account with that $400 you just deposited, only to find out that you're actually overdrawn $300. If this ever did happen to you, it would feel like your whole entire world was over, right? But if you had Aura, the fraudulent transaction would be flagged as such, so you can do something about it and work with the Aura team and your bank to make everything right. It's the all-in-one package, including identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, VPN, password management, and much more, so that you are fully protected and worry-free. And there's no better time to get this because Aura is actually giving every GameLeap viewer 2 weeks completely free of charge. So you can test their product and see how good it truly is with zero risk. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description or in the comment section to get Aura right now. Okay, let's hop back into things, and what better place to start off with than tip number 1, and this is target priority. Now, it is important to prioritize targets based on their impact on the enemy team's performance. While yes, it can be tempting to target an enemy with a fight-winning ultimate, it's more often effective to focus down the strongest healer on the enemy team. Most team compositions have one stronger and one weaker healer, such as Baptiste and Lucio respectively. By finding an early pick on the strong healer, you can significantly reduce the enemy team's sustain and eventually lead to their downfall. Remember though to always communicate with your team about which target to prioritize and coordinate your attacks for maximum effectiveness. Moving on into tip number 2 though, this is dying on point. You need to learn how to lose fights the right way. If a fight is lost on a King of the Hill map, more often than not, it ends up with you staggering outside of the point. What you want to be doing instead is dying on point, stalling as much as you possibly can and using any non-ultimate abilities such as a May block, Tracer Recall, or even blocking as Ramatra to negate damage. But remember, don't waste your ult because to do so in a 1v5 situation at this point would just lead to being in a worse position for you in the next fight. But now let's move into tip number 3, and this is trigger discipline. The term trigger discipline is typically used in games like Counter-Strike or even Valorant. However, it is also an essential skill in Overwatch. It means that you just need to be able to hold back from immediately attacking an enemy the moment you see them. Taking just half a second to analyze their movement pattern could mean distinguishing between securing a pick or having your target escape and putting yourself in danger. This is especially important when playing heroes with high burst damage because that extra time will allow you to predict your target's movements and guarantee an easier time eliminating them. Moving into tip number 4 though, this is patience around enemy cooldown usage. Come on, I know we are all guilty of it. Zarya bubble and Genji can feel unavoidable to shoot sometimes, but when you are looking for the right things, they're actually highly predictable and telegraphed. A Zarya without any charge is absolutely useless, and Genji without deflect has no way to defend himself. So waiting for these abilities to come out will lead to more winning plays being made. The same is also applicable when you look for engaging enemies. Even in the poking phase of fights, Anas will always feel like just throwing out their nade or sleep. Therefore, letting enemies make mistakes for you is usually a great way to end a fight. Moving into tip number 5 though, this is stagger picks. It cannot be stressed enough how many times the enemy will regroup to a choke without their team. And I mean, we have all seen it. Hell, we are probably very guilty of it ourselves. Learning to recognize when this happens will both negate us from doing it as well as help us find opportunities to stagger the enemies. It occurs most when an enemy gets picked off early, just before their whole team gets wiped, so keeping this in mind will help you recognize these opportunities and continue to set them further behind. Moving into tip number 6 though, this is always have an escape. This tip may seem broad, but it's crucial to remember potential escape routes and abilities that you have at your disposal. That way, if you need to disengage from the enemy team, in basically all situations, especially when you're the first to engage. By doing so, you'll significantly reduce the likelihood of being the first one to die on your team, and also increase your overall survival and impact on the team and in the team fights. But now let's talk about tip number 7, and this is playing your life. How many times do you feel like you are just being hard focused, as if the enemy just has it out for you the entire time? This can be the case even if you are not out of position, and sometimes they will even over ult for you. Like for example, if somebody pops a nano blade and just starts to chase you down, all you have to do is just play your life. Lead them as far away as you possibly can, living for as long as you possibly can, and then during this overcommit of resources, it's an attempt to take you out of the fight will give you and your team a higher chance of winning. Moving into tip number 8 though, this is picking around your team. Now, obvious or not, it's usually the case that most team compositions have weaknesses that can be exploited. Whether or not you're playing as the tank, DPS, or support, identifying what can counter you in hero selection and filling what you may need is crucial to ensure high odds of winning. For instance, a pretty common weakness is pharmacy. Sometimes you don't have enough range or damage to take away such a strong, and this can ruin a game instantly, but heroes like D.Va or Winston or McCree or Ashe and Baptiste or Zenyatta can deal with these incredibly well. It's vital to choose heroes that complement your entire team effectively and can counter enemy picks, and your picks should primarily be based on what your team needs and what the enemy team is running. Talk about tip number 9 though, and this is keeping up with the meta. Generally speaking, Overwatch is a game where you can make anything work, but if you want to have an easier time winning your games, pick who is strong in the current meta. A season or two ago, Hog would have been one of the best if not the strongest carry pick in the game when playing a tank. Now he is actually pretty much useless and unplayed. Characters such as Junker Queen, Zarya, Sojourn, and Moira aren't quite what they used to be either, and trying to avoid these picks unless you really want to improve on them will certainly make you win more games. Jumping into tip number 10 though, this is learning to off-angle. Off-angling can be pretty confusing. Knowing how far you can stray from your team safely and how aggressive to be while doing it is pretty difficult. Still, the only way to learn how to do it is by doing it. We recommend you test the waters and see how much value you can gain in fights where you just play a bit more for yourself. And this isn't just DPS things. Off-angling on a high damage or even high C support such as Auto or Zenyatta can be fight changing. Getting a clean engage off into the enemy backline as a monkey or ball from an off angle can be absolutely devastating on the enemy team's position also. So give it a shot. Tip number 11 though, this is to understand your animations. Most heroes in Overwatch actually have animation cancels, whether it's something small like Winston's punch before he lands from his jump or ultimate, or even Ryan's swing into Fire Strike. Most characters have animation cancels that allow you to output more damage than when your action is done the other way around. These are crucial to know, especially if you have a smaller hero pool, which actually leads me to the next tip, and that is tip number 12. This is polish your hero pool. I'll be the first to admit, it is pretty fun to play every hero, sometimes even if you're new, or you could even be an experienced player. But if you want to up your win rate and be better overall, it is a really good idea to focus on learning 3 to 5 heroes for your role, and then you just want to stick to them. These heroes are also usually going to be considerably different from each other. For example, if you main Reinhardt, Ramattra and Orisa are very similar, so only maining these heroes would lead to a hero pool that lacks mobility. Try to cover all ground so you can have a counter to most if not all heroes, and mastering each of them will undoubtedly lead to success. But now let's talk about tip number 3, and this is analyze your enemy's movement. You will need this crucial skill to be one step ahead of your enemy. Usually you're going to see the enemy Ryan just walking up to get a good angle. This is just really telegraphing that he has his ultimate. Also, Genjis like to poke to get the rest of their ult charge when they are just about to have blade. You can abuse these types of things and have this information regardless of your role. Communicate this to your team, and if it's clear that they have ult coming up, switch up your positions accordingly, or even try to focus them down before they can use it, therefore making it significantly harder to use and giving your team a slighter edge. But as we move into tip number 14, and this is setting win conditions. Win conditions can be very complex, but we will simplify them as much as we possibly can. Again, understanding them is an essential skill, especially if you want to communicate them with your team. Your calls don't necessarily have to be correct. However, if you tell your team our win condition is to focus on someone, even if it wasn't the best play, it is so much better than everyone doing their own thing. Win conditions can be conditions you need to turn a fight around from a losing position or stop the enemy team from doing the same, as well as what we will discuss in the next tip. But the next tip is tip number 15, and this is denying enemy win conditions. Okay, so let's say you are winning a fight. The enemy team is playing something among the lines of Reaper, Genji, Ana, and you got to pick onto the tank before the fight even started. You are now in a winning situation. Congratulations. But what now? The fight clearly isn't over, and understanding the enemy's win condition is key to ending the fight in your favor. If they have Venano Blade or Reaper ult, that is their win condition. Therefore, you need to take that away from them. You then need to communicate this to your team and put the other team in a situation where they cannot turn the fight and cannot use their win con. But now let's move into tip number 16. This is using corners to bait overextensions. All right. Imagine this scenario. The enemy Ramattra, regardless of who you are playing, is punching you to death. He is so close to killing you, but you just turned a corner. This will happen at every level of play, and it applies to so much more than just Ramattra, where you can bait the enemies to make bad decisions based on your health or what they think that they can get away with. In this situation, your team is around the corner and ready to help. He chases, so goodbye Ramattra. And if he doesn't change, well, he has used his form and now it's an even position, if not slightly in your favor. But now let's talk about tip number 17, and this is to avoid comboing ults. What? Were you guys not expecting this one? Because in Overwatch 2, you guys have to actually be treating ultimates differently. After all, they are obtained much slower. Nanoblading can sound like a great idea, and usually it's as if the enemies have equal or better ult economy. But most of the time this isn't a great option because this can be an overuse of ultimates when a fight can be won with fewer resources than comboing ults. Let's say you have a Monkey, Genji, Ana comp. Genji is 80% to plate and Ana has Nano ready, and the Monkey is 60% to ult. If this is after the first fight of the match, then that fight was won rather smoothly. It is very likely the enemies cannot match your ult economy, and the Nano onto a Monkey to get his ult up for the next fight instead of overplaying for the Nano Blade is going to mean a significant ult advantage for you going into the fight afterwards, and still give you guys a great chance of winning the current one. But let's move into tip number 18, and this is never give up. Be honest, we have all given up on matches. That 5-minute time bank is just staring at you in the face as your attack on Blizzard World and your defense just wasn't up to par. But guys, that was only half of the match being played out. The game sure as hell isn't over yet, at least not until you've mentally checked out. It is always winnable as long as you continue to adapt to the enemy's hero picks and playstyle and try your best to keep your team from mentally checking out also. It is likely 3 out of 10 games that could have been won if you had just tried to actually win. But let's talk about tip number 19, and this is be realistic with your kill pressure. When looking to engage on an enemy, it is important to understand just how much damage you have in relation to how much support your enemy target may receive. This will vary depending on who you play, who your target is, and what support lineup the enemies are running. But trust me, you do not want to be the guy that's overextended to try to kill a completely safe target. Having the spatial awareness to recognize when your team can back you up or if the enemy team can back up their target is crucial regardless of what role you are playing and what hero you are playing. But now we've reached tip 20, so this is learn from videos on your hero. Watching excellent guides, pro players, or even friends play is an amazing way to learn how to play a role or a hero better. But also, if you're looking to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Overwatch tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button either. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Second Gaming, and I will see you guys in the next one.